In a stunning turn, a U.S. federal court has struck down a core pillar of the Trump administration's trade policy, dismantling tariffs that have shaped America's economic relationships for years. The ruling challenges the executive branch's power to wage a trade war, setting the stage for a legal battle that could redefine the presidency. On the same day, former President Trump, architect of these tariffs, shocked observers by praising Canada, one of the nations most affected. For years, Trump's administration justified tariffs as protection for American industry, often targeting Canada with harsh rhetoric. Now, his sudden call for partnership with Canada marks a dramatic shift, leaving both supporters and critics questioning his motives. The court's decision is a direct blow to the America First economic nationalism that defined Trump's presidency. These tariffs weren't just economic, they were political symbols of a new, aggressive approach to global trade. The ruling declares that this approach overstepped presidential authority, forcing a national conversation about the balance of power. Businesses caught in the crossfire feel both relief and uncertainty, as the administration vows to appeal, and the fate of these duties remains in limbo. Meanwhile, Trump's olive branch to Canada adds a new twist to an already complex drama in global economics and political power. To grasp today's significance, let's rewind to the origins of the trade war. The Trump administration's tariffs, launched in 2018, targeted countries like China and aimed to protect American jobs and industries. These sweeping measures affected nearly every sector, from steel to solar panels, triggering immediate retaliation from Canada, Mexico, the EU, and China. The tit-for-tat escalated into a global trade war, disrupting alliances and markets. U.S. manufacturers faced soaring costs, while farmers lost access to key export markets. The economic pain was widespread, dividing those who saw tariffs as necessary from those who viewed them as self-inflicted wounds. The administration insisted the tariffs were a powerful negotiating tool, worth short-term pain for long-term gain. Years of tension and legal challenges followed, culminating in the judicial scrutiny that led to today's landmark decision. The policy that aimed to reshape global trade now faces its greatest test in the courts. The legal foundation for these tariffs was the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, or IEEPA. The Trump administration argued that unfair trade practices constituted a national emergency, justifying broad tariffs. Critics countered that IEEPA was never meant for sweeping trade policy, especially against allies like Canada and Mexico. Lawsuits quickly followed, with businesses and states arguing the president had exceeded his authority and sidelined Congress. The core issue separation of powers and whether the president can unilaterally impose tariffs under the guise of emergency. The administration's lawyers claimed wide executive discretion, while opponents warned of unchecked presidential power. This legal clash set the stage for a pivotal judicial showdown over the limits of executive authority. The courts were asked, how far can a president go in the name of national security and economic protection? The answer came in a decisive ruling from the U.S. Court of International Trade, which sided with the plaintiffs and rebuked the administration's legal rationale. The court found the use of IEEPA to impose tariffs improper, declaring the president had acted beyond congressional authority. The decision overturns tariffs on a wide range of goods from China, Canada, and Mexico, offering relief to importers and businesses. Billions in potential savings are at stake. But not all Trump-era tariffs are gone. Duties on steel and aluminum, imposed under a different law, remain. This partial reversal creates a fragmented trade landscape, with some disputes resolved and others ongoing. The administration has vowed to appeal, pushing the case toward higher courts and possibly the Supreme Court. For now, businesses and international partners remain in suspense, awaiting a final resolution. The legal battle is far from over, but the lower court's ruling is a major victory for opponents of the tariffs. The court's decision sparked swift reactions worldwide. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney welcomed the ruling as a victory for fair trade, seeing it as validation after years of tension. China also praised the decision, viewing it as a step toward restoring global trade stability and a symbolic win against U.S. protectionism. Mexico, however, responded cautiously, analyzing the implications before making a formal statement, aware that an appeal is pending. These varied responses highlight the global impact of U.S. trade policy and the interconnectedness of modern economies. The court's decision is seen as a potential off-ramp from escalating trade conflicts, offering hope for de-escalation. Yet, with the appeal looming, uncertainty persists for businesses and governments alike. The world is watching closely, knowing this chapter in global trade is far from closed. The outcome will shape international economic relations for years to come. The economic impact of the court's decision is immediate and far-reaching. For U.S. businesses reliant on imports, the removal of tariffs means lower costs, potential price drops for consumers, and renewed investment. Some domestic industries, once shielded by tariffs, now face tougher competition from cheaper imports. The debate over tariffs, protection versus efficiency, will reignite as companies adjust to the new landscape. Consumers could see relief at the checkout, as the hidden tax of tariffs is lifted from everyday goods. However, uncertainty remains as the legal battle continues, making long-term planning difficult for businesses. Predictability is key for economic growth, and the hope is for a swift, final resolution. Until then, the business community remains in limbo, awaiting clarity from the courts. Politically, the court's ruling strikes at the heart of the debate over presidential power. By curbing executive authority, the court reaffirms Congress's constitutional role in trade policy. Lawmakers opposed to the tariffs have praised the decision, while Trump supporters decry it as judicial overreach. If upheld, the ruling could set a precedent limiting any president's ability to use emergency powers for broad economic action. This may force future administrations to collaborate more with Congress on trade, but could also slow responses to economic threats. Trump's unexpected praise for Canada adds intrigue, leaving analysts speculating about his motives and future ambitions. The political fallout ensures the tariff saga will remain a hot topic in Washington. The debate over executive power and trade is far from settled. Legal and trade experts see the ruling as a pivotal moment, reasserting congressional authority over trade. If it stands, it could mark a shift toward more predictable, rules-based trade policy and away from unilateral executive action. Businesses welcome the prospect of stability, but some analysts warn the legal fight isn't over, and protectionist sentiment remains strong. The Supreme Court could still weigh in, and the political pressures that fueled the trade war haven't disappeared. This case forces a national reckoning over the balance of power and the future of U.S. trade policy. The answers will shape how America protects its industries while honoring constitutional principles. The court's decision is a turning point, but not the end of the story. The outcome will influence U.S. trade for generations. As of October 3, 2025, the future of American and global trade is in flux. The court's decision to overturn many Trump-era tariffs has triggered relief, caution, and political maneuvering worldwide. At its core, this is a story about the limits of presidential power and the rule of law. A federal court has invalidated sweeping tariffs, prompting both international praise and a vow to appeal. Some duties remain, and Trump's praise for Canada adds political complexity. The next steps, especially the appeals process, will set lasting precedents for trade law and executive authority. The world is watching to see if this leads to de-escalation or renewed conflict. The outcome affects prices, jobs, and America's global relationships. The tariff saga is still unfolding, with its final chapter yet to be written. We'll continue to follow every development as this story shapes the future of global trade.